Mayor Tiffany Henyard's once bright political career took a sharp and disastrous turn when the town's historic election of the first black female mayor of Dalton, Illinois, was soon marred by financial mismanagement and accusations of corruption. At first, the election was hailed as a turning point for the town, signifying progress and the dismantling of racial barriers in local politics. She was viewed as a beacon of hope for Dalton, a community struggling with economic hardships and a lack of political representation. However, what should have been a promising new chapter for the town swiftly fell apart, and Henyard found herself at the center of a scandal involving embezzlement of taxpayer funds and the misuse of public resources for personal indulgences. This was not an isolated incident, rather, it was part of a troubling pattern of extravagant personal spending, including first-class flights, five-star hotel stays, and extravagant purchases. One particularly shocking expenditure was a $110,000 stay at the prestigious Four Seasons Hotel in Atlanta, which many in the community found impossible to reconcile with the financial struggles of the town she was supposed to serve. These revelations cast a dark cloud over Henyard's leadership as the public realized that while the mayor lived a life of luxury, Dalton's financial stability was deteriorating under her administration. Projects intended to revitalize the town were either stalled or were. When it became apparent that Henyard's actions represented not only a betrayal of the public trust, but also a serious violation of the principles of accountability and service, local government officials who had previously supported Henyard's vision for the town rushed to repair the damage caused by her alleged financial misconduct, but the damage was already done. Dalton, a town that had once been hopeful for change, now faces an uncertain future with residents growing increasingly disillusioned and wondering whether the promised revitalization was ever more than the accusations against Henyard were especially devastating because they brought to light the stark contrast between her extravagant lifestyle and the harsh realities faced by the residents of Dalton. While Henyard reportedly enjoyed luxurious accommodations and extravagant purchases, the town's infrastructure remained in disarray, services were underfunded, and important projects were put on hold. The financial instability she created left Dalton in a precarious position with mounting debt and insufficient resources to address urgent issues. The perception that Henyard had used her position to further her personal gain rather than to uplift and serve the community caused a deep rift between the people and their elected officials. What was once viewed as a promising time of change now left Dalton feeling disillusioned and uncertain as investigations into her financial activities grew more intense and citizens demanded answers and transparency about how public funds had been diverted for private benefit instead of being used to address the town's urgent needs. Her political future now hung in the balance, with the possibility of legal repercussions looming over her. Her fall from grace had been swift and dramatic, leaving her reputation in ruins. She had once been hailed as a trailblazer and a symbol of hope for the town, but now her downfall had not only damaged the office of mayor, but also dealt a blow to the town's. As the town's first black female mayor, Henyard stood as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked leadership and the betrayal of public trust. As legal battles intensified and the town reeled from the financial wreckage left in her wake, Henyard's fall from grace was a harsh lesson in the destructive power of corruption and the lack of oversight in public office. As residents struggled to cope with the fallout of her actions, she left a fractured community that was bitterly divided by the events of the previous few years. Her refusal to cooperate with efforts to resolve Dalton's financial crisis, including vetoing measures to impose stricter financial controls and blocking the appointment of an independent auditor, led to a state of gridlock within the town's administration. This only fueled public outreach as residents grew increasingly frustrated. Town hall meetings turned into heated protests in the streets, and social media campaigns demanded her resignation. Instead of admitting her role in the town's financial collapse, Henyard painted herself as a misunderstood leader, accusing her of financial mismanagement despite overwhelming evidence of financial mismanagement, including her extravagant personal spending, including a $43,000 Amazon shopping spree and a $110,000 stay at the Four Seasons Hotel. At one town meeting, she was singled out by critics for her bizarre behavior, which included showing up with a golden microphone, an ostentatious gesture that stunned the audience and highlighted her apparent disconnect from the gravity of the situation. Another incident involved a DJ allegedly playing Rihanna's "Better Have My Money" in an apparent attempt to defuse the situation. These actions further exacerbated the sense of alienation between Henyard and the community as residents grew increasingly frustrated with her refusal to take responsibility for the damage caused under her leadership. Dalton, which had once been full of hope for a brighter future, now faces an uncertain future as her hold on power was weakened amid legal investigations and widespread calls for reform, leaving the town on the verge of a crucial turning point. The fallout from Henyard's actions not only served as a warning to others in positions of authority, but also offered Dalton the chance to mend and move past the scandal. As the town grappled with the financial mess left in Henyard's wake, there was growing hope that the lessons learned from this dark chapter would inspire necessary reforms, restore public trust, and aid in rebuilding the community. However, since Henyard continued to oppose efforts to curb the town's excessive spending and her bizarre antics, further alienating residents, Dalton's future remained at UNC. Residents' frustration with Henyard reached a boiling point as they yearned for a return to integrity and accountability in their leadership. Her dramatic fall from grace serves as a sobering reminder of the importance of transparency and ethical conduct in public office, emphasizing that unchecked power can have disastrous effects on a community. Dalton now finds itself at a crossroads with an uncertain future, but if the town could overcome the damage caused by Henyard's tenure, it might be able to chart a course for the future based on the principles of accountability and responsible governance. Serious accusations against Henyard grew more intense as Dalton sank deeper into a political and financial crisis, and even her former supporters turned against her. Her trustees publicly expressed regret for their early support, now viewed as a mistake, and their support, which had been rooted in hope for change, was now viewed as misguided, leaving the town to grapple with the wreckage of Henyard's tenure. Illinois' as Mayor Tiffany Henyard has refused to address the growing accusations against her. Her bizarre and erratic behavior, such as arriving at town meetings with a golden microphone and letting a DJ play Rihanna's "Better Have My Money," has further alienated not only the public but even her most ardent supporters. These bizarre antics, along with her continued denial about the consequences of her actions, have deepened the community's frustration and undermined any remaining faith in her leadership. Henyard's silence on important issues and her refusal to accept responsibility have raised suspicions that she may be trying to leave Dalton before facing legal repercussions. The FBI's increased focus on tracking her whereabouts has made the situation more urgent, as there are rumors that she may be trying to escape justice. This increasing uncertainty has left Dalton in a state of chaos characterized by financial instability, deteriorating public services, and a general sense of dysfunction in a town already struggling with mounting debt and critical infrastructure issues. Many are now questioning whether Henyard has any intention or ability to lead effectively. The mounting tension has escalated concerns about her leadership, and many fear that Dalton may face even more strife before it reaches a breaking point, adding to the complexity of the crisis. The indictment of Deputy Police Chief L.S. Lacey on charges of bankruptcy fraud has cast a shadow over Henyard's administration, raising suspicions of a pattern of financial misconduct. The link between Lacey's charges and Henyard's troubled leadership has fueled rumors of widespread corruption within. Henyard vehemently opposed these efforts, blocking any attempts to bring in an independent auditor or allow external scrutiny of her administration. Her refusal to cooperate with these measures and her continued insistence on avoiding transparency only made the situation worse, deepening the public's mistrust and further undermining confidence in her ability to govern in Dalton's already fragile state. As legal and public pressure mounted, Dalton's trustees moved quickly to limit Henyard's influence. They tightened financial controls, cut off her access to local credit cards, and launched an independent investigation into her financial dealings. Continues to loom large, and as calls for reform become louder and the pressure for accountability reaches a tipping point, the people of Dalton are left wondering if the town will ever recover from the damage caused by Henyard's actions. Their struggle for stability continues amid the administration's fallout from the Henyard scandal, which has left the town at a critical juncture, with its infrastructure rapidly deteriorating due to severe financial strain, and the future of central public services hanging in the balance. Financial health continues to decline under Henyard's leadership, and worries are mounting about the possible loss of key personnel and vital services if the situation worsens as debt spirals and important projects stall, and residents are becoming more and more concerned about their government's capacity to recover. The mayor's defiance and obstructionism have effectively paralyzed the local government as her opposition to necessary reforms undermines the efforts of the town's trustees to stabilize the administration. Attempts to create an emergency budget to address urgent fiscal concerns have been delayed or blocked entirely by the mayor, leaving Dalton's government in a state of gridlock and making it impossible to address the growing economic and social challenges. The community is irritated, and residents are wondering if Henyard will continue to hold on to power or try to avoid accountability. The possibility that Henyard is actively trying to shield herself from legal action or misconduct has only increased public anxiety as speculation about her true intentions and the town's future grows amid this turmoil. The FBI has intensified its investigation into Henyard, signaling the seriousness of the accusations against her. Federal authorities are now closely examining her financial activities in an effort to uncover the full extent of any potential wrongdoing. For many residents, the intense investigation offers a glimmer of hope that justice will ultimately prevail, but the uncertainty surrounding the timeline of legal action and the outcome of the case. The investigation has left the community in a state of limbo. Dalton, which was once full of hope for revitalization under Henyard's leadership, is now dealing with the fallout from her alleged financial mismanagement and personal misconduct. As the situation worsens, residents are left wondering whether the town will ever be able to recover, especially since Henyard's leadership seems to be on the verge of collapsing, or her steadfast resistance to reform is growing. Legal troubles and refusal to allow external oversight have pushed Dalton closer to both financial and political ruin. The damage caused by her administration has eroded the public's trust in local government, and many people are left wondering if the town can ever get back on its feet. As the investigation continues, the likelihood that Henyard will eventually be removed from office grows, but the damage he has caused to Dalton's finances and political structure raises serious questions about whether the town can recover from this crisis for now. Dalton remains in a state of flux with no clear resolution in sight, the town caught between a deteriorating financial situation, mounting public unrest, and the looming specter of legal consequences for Henyard. Her bizarre public behavior has further strained the relationship between the mayor's office and the residents she was elected to serve. Initially heralded as a beacon of change, Mayor Tiffany Henyard's tenure as the town's first African-American woman mayor, elected in 2021, quickly became embroiled in scandal accusations of financial misconduct and erratic behavior. What started as a hopeful and historic moment for the town, marked by promises of revitalization and effective governance, has turned into a story of mismanagement, broken promises, and a steadily growing public distrust at the beginning of her administration. Her platform focused on community-driven projects, economic revitalization, and addressing the town's long-standing issues. Her election was celebrated as a milestone for Dalton, and her administration was recognized for its progressive initiatives. However, within 2 years, her leadership began to fall apart, and accusations of financial misconduct, including extravagant personal spending and fiscal irresponsibility, engulfed her administration. The accusations grew more intense over time, and by 2022, reports began to surface detailing Henyard's reckless spending habits. The most shocking of these was a $43,000 one-day Amazon shopping spree, which raised eyebrows, and residents were further incensed by her reported use of first-class flights and stays at upscale hotels, which were perceived as a betrayal of the public trust and fueled suspicions about her priorities. As accusations of financial misconduct grew, Henyard's response was a mix of defiance and denial. She vetoed measures meant to ensure financial accountability, including the hiring of independent auditors to examine her spending, which only heightened suspicions about her true intentions and led to growing frustration within the town. began as a base of supporters who gradually dissolved, and even Henyard's former allies on the Board of Trustees became some of her harshest critics. By this point, Dalton's government was in complete disarray, the town's infrastructure was deteriorating, its financial situation was getting worse, and public trust was rapidly eroding. Town hall meetings turned into confrontations with residents demanding accountability, and protests calling for Henyard's resignation became louder. Social media campaigns calling for her resignation gained traction, and anger and disillusionment spread throughout the community. However, Henyard refused to resign, further alienating those who had previously supported her. The FBI launched an investigation into Henyard's financial dealings, which only added pressure to an already dire situation. The investigation, along with the mounting public outcry, made it clear that Henyard's leadership was under intense scrutiny, but she refused to cooperate with efforts to address the situation. On multiple occasions, she appeared at meetings with a golden microphone and allowed a DJ to play Rihanna's "Better Have My Money," gestures that mocked the gravity of the situation. Instead of bringing the community together, these bizarre actions showed her incapacity or unwillingness to face the ongoing crisis or accept responsibility for her actions. Instead of working to repair the damage done to Dalton's financial and political health, she stubbornly committed to portraying herself as a misunderstood champion of the people, which alienated even her most ardent supporters. The town remained in a state of limbo, paralyzed by her defiance and the inability of officials to enact necessary reforms. Public confidence in her leadership had evaporated, but she continued to cling to power as the situation worsened. Rumors regarding Han's possible connections to Deputy Police Chief L.S. Lacey, who was charged with bankruptcy fraud, raised serious concerns about the level of corruption in her administration. These connections raise concerns about the extent of misconduct and corruption at the highest levels of Dalton's local government. The connection between Lacey's charges and Henyard's troubled leadership only served to fuel suspicions that the town's problems were part of a larger pattern of financial mismanagement and corruption. In response to the growing concerns, Dalton's trustees moved quickly to limit Henyard's influence. They instituted stringent financial controls, banned her from using local credit cards, and started preliminary investigations into her financial dealings. As the town's infrastructure continued to deteriorate and its financial situation worsened, residents began to fear that their hopes for revitalization under Hen's leadership were slipping away. Instead of being a town on the rise, Dalton had become a symbol of mismanagement with rising debt, deteriorating infrastructure, and a complete breakdown of public trust. This suggested that the leadership may have been even more deeply involved in misconduct than previously believed. Furthermore, the mounting evidence of financial mismanagement and corruption caused Hen's former supporters to turn against the town. When the investigation into her actions progressed, there was widespread uncertainty about whether Henyard would face the consequences of her alleged misconduct or if she would continue to avoid accountability. Her actions had left Dalton in a precarious position, and residents and officials were unsure whether the investigation would ultimately result in meaningful reform or whether the town would remain trapped in the cycle of dysfunction and corruption. She had fueled what was once a vision of revitalization under Henyard's leadership, but instead turned into a tragic tale of broken promises, unresolved issues, and a future that seemed more and more uncertain as the town struggled to recover from the damage done during Henyard's tenure. Many residents watched the ongoing investigation in the hopes that it would bring the clarity and justice needed to restore accountability and stability to Dalton's leadership, but the longer Henyard remained defiant, the more it seemed that the damage he had caused might be irreversible. Dalton's future now hangs in the balance, and the residents are left wondering if the damage done to the town is repairable or if the community will experience even more hardship before this crisis is resolved. Both Dalton and Thornton Township trustees were alarmed by the accusations of corruption, reckless spending, and a leadership style that put personal indulgence ahead of the needs of the community. Her administration has been rocked by accusations of excessive personal spending, questionable travel expenses, and a budgeting process shrouded in opacity. These financial missteps have sparked heated confrontations with town officials who have directly blamed Henyard for much of Dalton's financial instability. grievances about her administration's financial irresponsibility have only gotten worse over time, and reports of questionable financial practices and extravagant spending habits have fueled rumors that Henyard was once to her tenure, which had once been marked by potential transformation, turned into a symbol of missed opportunities, poor management, and a failure to live up to the expectations of the very people who voted her into office. Her response to the growing unrest was a mixture of denial and defiance. She adamantly defended her actions and accused critics of undermining her efforts, but this refusal to acknowledge the gravity of the situation only deepened the divide between her and her allies. Her tenure now stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unaccountable leadership. Her fall from grace has shaken Dalton and Thornton Township to their core, leaving the town divided and residents fearful of what the future holds. The fallout from her actions has not yet been fully resolved, and locals anxiously wonder whether justice will be served or if Henyard will continue to cling to power until the end of her term. Since legacy is now tainted by controversy, it serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers of unchecked leadership and the consequences of disregarding public trust. As Dalton struggles with the fallout from Henyard's administration, the town's future is still uncertain, and residents can only watch and wait for accountability and the return of order. However, the road to recovery will probably be long and full of obstacles and be never completely recovered from the damage caused by her leadership. Until we meet again, thanks for watching Visual Vortex.